Good evening from the KTN News Center. Many thanks for joining us. KTN Prime begins right now. I am Ben Kitili.
I'm Sophia Wanuna. Our sign language interpreter tonight is Maresha Owiti. Here are our top stories.
Ati msichague hii watu, mnakumbuka yale yalitendeka. Kwani yeye mwenyewe alikuwa wapi na yeye alikuwa katikati ya hiyo vita? Alafu anakuja na laumu huyu ndugu yangu na yeye ndio alikuja kuwasha moto.
The ICC is back. Uhuru blames Raila for violence, but Raila says, look around you, Mr. President.
We are doing our best to make sure the equipment we require will be in place before 10th of April.
Caught in a dilemma, IEBC cancels yet another tender as time runs out for preparations.
Kofia Jubilee nikikosa solution, yes, I have a right. It is my democratic right kuhama kwenda chama ile najua itanichagua kama governor. Hata kwenda independent.
Twende huko tutumie voters register ile watu waliregister.
Plus, trouble persists in the Jubilee Nairobi team as Sonko and Peter Kenneth lay out conditions.
And killing bedbugs for votes. Nakuru MCA aspirant thinks out of the box.
Welcome to the broadcast. Exactly 138 days to the elections. Tonight, Kenya's President Uhuru Kenyatta has suddenly brought back the issue of the 2007-2008 post-election chaos, blaming Raila Odinga for igniting the violence that saw over 1,300 Kenyans killed and over 600,000 displaced.
Yes, now the matter which drew in the International Criminal Court and drove Uhuru and Ruto's campaigns in 2013 became the topic of Uhuru's address at Kisii County's Nyaturago Stadium today.
And as KTN's associate editor now tells us, Raila Odinga has told the president to first look around him and then watch his mouth.
For the first time in this year's election campaigns, President Uhuru Kenyatta has resurrected the emotive post-election violence debate, which was at the center of his anti-ICC campaign in the 2013 presidential race. But now, Uhuru says opposition leader Raila Odinga should not pretend he was clean over the chaos.
Kwa hivyo mtu akija hapa awaambie ati msichague hii watu, mnakumbuka yale yalitendeka. Kwani yeye mwenyewe alikuwa wapi na yeye alikuwa katikati ya hiyo vita? Alafu anakuja na laumu huyu ndugu yangu na yeye ndio alikuja kuwasha moto. Nani aliwasha moto? Nani alikuwa na lugha ya 40 against 1? Bana tuambiane ukweli. Na ameanza hiyo. Sasa sijui 39 ni bado ni 40 against 2. Sasa mimi sijui.
Uhuru and his deputy William Ruto successfully rallied supporters and other Kenyans who were convinced that the ICC post-election violence cases against the two was an affront to Kenya's sovereignty. The numbers catapulted Uhuru and Ruto to State House even before they were both acquitted by the ICC, despite claims that witnesses were intimidated to withdraw their testimonies.
Jameni, kama kuna jamii ilipigana nchi hii, hakuna jamii ilipigana zaidi ya Wakikuyu na Wakalenjin. Tuseme ukweli bwana. Si ni ukweli? Leo hii rais ni Mkikuyu, naibu ni Mkalenjin na tumechaguliwa na Wakikuyu na Wakalenjin. Sasa jameni, nini hii watu wanaweza kusema ati hatuwezi kusameheana?
The NASA principal Raila Odinga has fired off a quick response to the president's comments, telling Uhuru to look around him if he really wants to know who was involved in the chaos. Raila says in his statement that the president should have watched his mouth in Kisii, insisting that Kisii is filled with post-election violence victims still hurting to this day.
My friends, na mimi nasema mambo haya yote nikiwa na heshima kubwa na ndugu yangu. Na kila saa mnasikia namuita ndugu yangu mkubwa. Lakini kuna pahali amepotea. Kwa sababu amekuwa stuck. Akifikiria hii mambo ya sijui wanaita third liberation. Sisi tunawashukuru mlituletea basi hiyo demokrasia, sasa tunaenjoy. Na tumekushukuru. Lakini hatuwezi tuishi huko. Lazima tusonge mbele. Au ni namna gani jameni?
Hata ukiona rais
2013 tulipitana nao kidogo, ni kwa sababu kwa kupima kwa ordinary raia walikuwa wanaona ile mtu mwingine anaweza kuchukua serikali, hao wakasema.
The president and his deputy are on a spirited campaign to build a strong support base in Kisii and Nyamira counties, areas perceived to be leaning towards the opposition. Noah Otieno, KTN News.
Joe, our big question tonight from that story, we're asking you whether you think it is necessary for top leadership in the country to make the 2007 post-poll chaos an agenda for this year's election.
Kindly do share your yes or no opinion with us concerning our big Q discussion tonight by texting us. 22155 is our SMS line. Twitter at Ben_Kitili, at Sophia Wanuna, at KTN News, and at KTN Kenya. The hashtag is KTN Prime. Shall be sampling some of your texts and tweets.
Indeed we will. And speaking of the August polls, the Kenyan Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission has cancelled a tender for the installation of an integrated elections management system. The IEBC is blaming budgetary constraints and inadequate time for the cancellation, but is not yet giving alternatives. The opposition is, however, warning against the thought of using the manual system in the coming elections.
In the next 19 days, Kenya was meant to have the integrated elections management systems in place. But now, with the cancellation of the tender awarded to French company Gelmato SA for the supply, delivery, installation, testing and commissioning of the system, it is back to square one.
We are doing our best to make sure the equipment they require will be in place before 10th of April.
The system is meant to integrate the existing biometric voter registration, the biometric voter identification, electronic transmission of results, and the political party and candidate registration systems.
The technology, I have no doubt in my mind, will be perfect. The timing is completely wrong.
The IEBC is citing budgetary constraints, saying the bid was above the budget and what it terms as lost lead time due to litigation over the tender. With only 4 months to the general election, experts argue, even with the cancellation, the IEBC is still time-barred.
Right now, they have just terminated this tender process. They have not kicked off the procurement process for the next one. Even if they go to direct procurement, that will still be challenged. And more than just the challenge and the procurement timelines, there are issues of getting to understand what this technology is going to do for you, training people, because you cannot ignore that fact.
The country concluded mass voter registration last month, one of the features of the system. IEBC in its cancellation says there would be no value for money to retain the component. It was ill-advised to include the feature in the first place, according to experts.
The next realistic time for a mass nationwide registration of voters is likely to come just before 2022. Now, do you really want to buy a system today that you will intend to use 5 years down the line, when you have a system that you can continue using until that time?
With time running out, the IEBC may settle for single sourcing or a government-to-government arrangement. But even that, James Orengo, who was a co-chair of the Joint Parliamentary Select Committee on Electoral Reforms, says will have to be above board.
You know, it is something which the government cannot play on its own. It has to involve the other stakeholders. And IEBC must stand tall. And stand over the government, stand over the executive. Because if they are going to operate as an appendage of the executive, then that business is not going to be done correctly.
The James Orengo co-chaired committee proposed the use of the technology, which led to the approval by Parliament of the integrated elections management system. And to Orengo, the use of a manual system in the elections is out of question.
But I can tell you, Jubilee should forget about a manual election.
The IEBC will not yet disclose its next course of action, but the electoral body will be under the spotlight on the use of technology as the clock ticks towards the August polls. Rita Tinina, KTN News.
Rita Tinina for us tonight. Thank you, Rita. Let's stay with that story. The Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission has been facing multiple petitions challenging procurement of electoral materials. KTN News political reporter Moremi Mwangi now delves into the tight timelines leading to the polls and interrogates the possible impact of the cancellation of the elections management system tender on the IEBC's preparedness for the elections.
It has arguably been the greatest nightmare for IEBC Chairman Wafula Chebukati and his team for 2 months now. The headwind of petitions challenging procurement of electoral material deemed as highly critical to the 2017 elections. The latest cause of dilemma is IEBC's cancellation of a tender for the integrated elections management system, less than 5 months to the August 8th polls.
The issue of technology, KIMS, is ongoing, is work in progress, and we shall give our issue Tuesday briefing next week on the progress we shall have made so far.
Pursuant to the Election Laws Amendment Act, any electoral technology for use in the 2017 polls has to be procured 120 days to the elections. This now means IEBC only has 18 days to begin and conclude a fresh procurement, since the general election is only 138 days away. Still, the technology will have to be tested and approved not later than 60 days to the election.
They even signed it.
Timelines which Siaya Senator James Orengo insists can still be met, but only if the IEBC keeps all political players in the loop.
For example, they were going to do a government-to-government kind of procurement or single sourcing, but in terms which will ensure that we get the best, gadgets in the system.
There are mechanisms, legitimate mechanisms within the tendering process for accelerating the process when time is limited. I expect that they will be advised to follow some of these methods because of the time constraints.
In January this year, Justice George Odunga quashed IEBC's award of the 2017 ballot papers printing tender to a Dubai-based firm over procurement flaws. The mandatory audit of the voters' register has also stalled since December last year. This after the opposition moved to court challenging the award of the tender for the exercise to KPMG audit firm. The case is still pending in court. But 2013 presidential contender, NARC Kenya leader Martha Karua, has cautioned against the possible manipulation of the courts into scuttling preparations for the 2017 polls.
Make litigation time-bound. Ensure that lawyers who file cases must be ready to prosecute them. Do not allow idling within the court.
How can you collude with the courts? For example, on the ballot papers, they were ordering ballot papers, first of all, on the basis of the law which had already been repealed.
Now, with the opposition insisting that the integrated elections management system is critical to the credibility of the 2017 polls, the IEBC and other political players will no doubt have to find a way to expedite the procurement process. Muremi Mwangi, KTN News in Nairobi.
Nairobi Senator Mike Mbuvi Sonko has claimed that the Jubilee Party is making the race for Nairobi Governor a Gatanga affair. Sonko says after making the former Gatanga MP David Murathe the vice chairman of Jubilee Party, there are now attempts to favor yet another former Gatanga MP, Peter Kenneth, for the Nairobi gubernatorial seat. Sonko also says if there is no fairness in the nomination process, he would not hesitate to go it alone.
I am going to support the case which is before our courts, which has been filed by the Council of Governors. I'll be an interested party in that case. We want aspirants to party hop. I want to give you one example. The same Gatanga constituency, the current member for Gatanga constituency, he was grigged when he vied kama MP ya Gatanga na TNA. Rigging ilikuwa open, akaenda kwa chama ingine, and today is the current Gatanga MP on a different party, not TNA. So we are going to kupigana hiyo, but by kupigania hiyo, kupigania democratic rights zangu na constitutional rights zangu haimaanishi napinga serikali ama napinga rais. I respect the president, I respect the presidency, I respect my party leader, but I will fight these handlers internally within Jubilee. Mambo ya propaganda kusema sijui Sonko anakimbilia wapi anahama, no. Nitakofia Jubilee nikikosa solution, yes, I have a right. It is my democratic right kuhama kwenda chama ile najua itanichagua kama governor. Hata kwenda independent. So watu wasinipangie bana, I'm a fighter and I'm going to fight.
Meanwhile, one of the Nairobi senators' main rivals in the Nairobi gubernatorial race, Peter Kenneth, has also thrown a spanner in the works of the nomination contest for Nairobi governorship. Kenneth says he is opposed to any idea of consensus in the seemingly crowded race for the Jubilee Nairobi ticket. He spoke as he officially launched his campaign today.
Hizo kadi hatujui mambo yao sana. Tuko pamoja. Hata ukibonyeza saa ingine ina reject na uko naye. Sivyo? Twende huko tutumie voters register ile watu waliregister. This is competition. If there is internal competition in Jubilee, hata mimi nasema hiyo consensus tuachane nayo. There is no need to sit down with people who just want to insult you. You cannot have a decent conversation. All right? Na mimi nasema chama ya Jubilee ijipange kwa nomination, twende hiyo nomination, tumalizane na hii maneno hapa Nairobi.
Stiff competition and other intrigues within major political parties and alliances ahead of the April nominations deadline seem to be reaching fever pitch.
The latest defectors are former MP Gitobu Imanyara, who was joined Mandeleo Chap from ODM, and the Laikipia Senate aspirant Maina Njenga, who joined KANU today.
KANU party, dubbed Chama cha Baba na Mama, is the latest beneficiary of aspirants finding hostile grounds in major political parties. Its latest catch being Laikipia Senate aspirant Maina Njenga.
We know and believe that it's going to have a great impact and it will be a great asset to our party. And a party of peace, love, of course, and unity. That is our party.
Njenga sought refuge in KANU after encountering resistance from Jubilee Party, on whose ticket he hoped to vie for the Laikipia senatorial seat.
Na hiyo ofisi ya Jubilee tumepeleka makaratasi hapo. Baada ya kupeleka makaratasi, hawajaangalia makaratasi, wakaniambia kwamba ati hiyo makaratasi ningoje jamaa moja apigiwe simu akuje aweke right. Sasa mimi nauliza, kwani chama ni ya mtu mmoja?
Tumemwambia karibu ndani kabisa.
Njenga is now officially a member of the Independence Party, though he still vouches to direct the presidential votes to the Jubilee basket to re-elect President Uhuru Kenyatta.
Hello, good morning.
But KANU is not the only beneficiary in this latest exodus. The Maendeleo Chap party has also netted a new high-profile member who just ditched ODM.
I have today formally applied for and obtained my membership of the Maendeleo Chap after writing my resignation letter addressed to the secretary of the ODM and copied to the IEBC.
Imanyara will vie for the Imenti Central parliamentary seat, having hibernated politically for the last 5 years.
We have had intense consultations with Mheshimiwa Gitobu Imanyara, and he is one who has told me clearly that despite years in the opposition, despite years where he was seen as a renegade, he is a man who, through his own conviction, has decided a long time ago to support the re-election of President Uhuru Kenyatta.
The April 26th party nominations deadline has set off an exodus of politicians who feel suffocated in the competitive bigger parties. Mark Namaswa, KTN News.
You're watching KTN Prime, our big Q. Let's remind you what we're asking you tonight. Whether it is necessary, in your opinion, for top leaders to make the 2007 chaos an election issue.
Indeed, what are your thoughts? It is exactly 138 days to the August 8th general election. Tell us what you think. We shall be sampling some of your tweets and texts during this broadcast. Twitter lines at Ben_Kitili, at KTN News, at Sophia Onuna, and at KTN Kenya.
Stay with us. We'll be back with more news after this short break.